Welcome to the second episode of Sawdust Nation with AJ from Crafted in New Jersey and me, Josh, from North Country Woodworking. We're going to be talking about woodworking, what we think it is, and what place a helper in the shop, meaning CNC or laser engraver. So, man, let's start off with what's on your bench.
Well, what's on my bench is just a lot of flags. I got more wavy flags to do. Got flat flags. It's flags all over. But one interesting thing is I got my first Etsy sale the other day. That was a guitar stand. So I'm in the process of building that, waiting for a special router bit because I got one of those mega flush trim bits from Infinity. So I figured, because I had a blowout on a previous build that I did with a regular straight flush trim bit, and the oak didn't survive it, so it actually blew a whole chunk off of it. And I heard that these bits are a little bit easier on the wood, so I figured I'd grab one of those for this build. What's on your bench?
Well, I just got done with a pretty large build, probably one of the larger ones I've done. That's already been installed. I'll be posting about it later, but essentially what it was is a bed frame. Interesting on that. Power went out, and it was an interesting build. So other than that, I have oven topper and be making two large 3-foot Thor hammers. You know, the ones from Marvel. And they're going to two special dads out there.
That's cool. What are they going to be made out of? Anything special?
Well, actually, I had some walnut sitting in the shop for quite a while, and it's about 6 inches thick already. It's about time to break into that. We're going to make some hammers out of it.
Nice. Now, are they going to be, might be going into too much detail, but hammer head and then a handle separate and put it all together, or cut out of a piece of walnut?
No carving here. It's going to be almost like a giant mallet that you make.
Wow.
I'm just going to do
That's awesome.
angles on it that you see. Basically, you're going to model it after the Thor's hammer you see in Marvel. I found some plans online, and they gave me the angles, do some laser engraving on it, and yeah. So I'm super excited how those are going to turn out to get started on those. They're going to be one special gift for two lucky guys.
Yeah, I'm excited now that I didn't even know about that, prior to this, and I'm excited to watch that get built because I'm curious on it now.
Well, it's one of those builds where you see a lot of people out there doing these special builds for a company or, just these crazy builds. And for me, this is my crazy build early on.
That's awesome.
I cannot wait to dive into this. I am super excited about it.
Yeah, that's good. Well, I mean, I did have a question about that bed frame that you made. That was all just standard 2x4s or anything different, with the wood or anything like that? Because I saw you sanding them, I saw you clearing them, and then you sent me the picture of them together. It was just 2x4s screwed together?
Yeah, it was a simple build. Essentially, they wanted something to go up in their daughter's room, and I know they wanted it obviously strong, something they could take apart easily due to their occupation. Gave them the options of hardwood or, softwood, and they went with the softwood option. 2x4s, I went cherry picking for those, and finally got some straight ones, cleaned them up, and, put a finish on them, pocket holes all over. Now they could take them apart anytime you want. And, before I left that house, I hung off at myself. So I know that a child should be plenty safe.
Yeah, right. Now, I know this is what everybody's thinking, but how long did it take you to find straight boards at the big box store?
Well,
how many days?
You didn't see me for the last couple of weeks, right? So, you know what I've been doing. No. It took me quite a while. I was actually, I think, irritating some people. I was trying to be polite as possible. But I went through pretty much, a couple pallets worth of 2x4s to get the best ones.
Jesus. Man, I always feel like I'm holding everybody up when I'm trying to look for those straight 2x4s. And then by I think, usually I'll buy 10 or 12 at a clip. By the 8th one, I'm just throwing them on. If they're straight enough, I'm fine with it because I just got to get out of everybody else's way. I don't want to hold them up.
Well, you also have I had a mental plan and something I written down to kind of go by. I knew that I needed a certain amount of, almost 8-foot 2x4s. And I also had some that were going to be, less than, 2 feet or so. So I look for those boards essentially.
At least I know there's hope when I go for 2x4s that there are straight ones in those piles.
Not anymore.
Yeah, yeah, you stole them all. I'll have to come down to you and pick up some straight ones if I can't find any. Well, with that being said, because woodworking in general, a lot of guys don't like pine. A lot of guys only stick to hardwoods. They, claim woodworking is this and that. And if you don't fit into that, it's kind of, are you really a woodworker? And to me, there's a lot of variance in woodworking, per se, because I know for myself when I first started in here, woodworking, what I thought was you had this immaculate shop that was, as big as a warehouse. You had the biggest tools ever, the most expensive everything. And then when I started going into it and really diving into this community and finding out that that's not true, people are doing it in a 10 by 10 shed and making beautiful pieces. And you don't have to have the most expensive things. You don't have to use the most exotic woods. Just because you have zebra wood on your racks doesn't mean, you're a better woodworker than the guy next door to you using pine. We're all in this for the same goal, is to make beautiful things. So to me, woodworking means a lot of different things. I was, like I said, I was stuck in my head when I first started, but now I love it. I love this community. I love where I'm at. I meet people, just like you, and we can collaborate. Even if your skill set is at a higher level than mine, we can still, laugh and joke and still have a great time. I went all over the place, but what would be woodworking to you? Like, how would you define it for yourself?
Well, first you get a piece of wood. Honestly, woodworking is that definition. Like you said, it could be anywhere. It can mean 100 different things to anybody. Personally, for myself, if you have a piece of wood in front of you and you're shaping it or creating something with it, you're a woodworker. If you have hands-on in any way, you are a woodworker. And I think from this community, I've learned that we all respect creativity in making, no matter what form it is. And if you're trying and you're out there, making something from nothing, you're not only a maker, you're a woodworker.
No, it makes sense. If and I kept on saying, even in the beginning, I'm not a woodworker. I'm not making furniture. I'm not making tables, this, that. I'm making flags. But still, I'm taking that piece of wood and I'm turning it into something that it wasn't. Before I touched it, it was literally a 2x4 that would be inside these walls that are surrounding us right now. And now it's something that somebody can actually hang up on their wall and appreciate.
That's what sets you apart, is you took something and you made something with it. That's what this community is so great about, is embracing that. Mm-hmm. Like you said, it doesn't matter what kind of wood you have, what kind of shop you have. Tall Dutchman Design, you could look him up on Instagram. He has an incredibly small shop. You're talking about, I think it's one of those shipping containers. And he works some amazing stuff in there. And then you have people that have larger shops that are making, quality furniture too, or smaller stuff. You make do with what you have. In the beginning, I believe the same thing as you did. I'm watching all these YouTubers. They have big garages, they have nice workbench. They have these tools that I never thought I would ever get. It doesn't matter what tool you have. It really matters how creative you are. Because if you sit there and you can make something out of nothing, then you know what? That's the greatest tool in your arsenal.
Oh yeah. You can, you could take a piece of wood, look at it, and then go, I want to build something out of it. And then step by step, you put it together. When I first started, I put a coffee table together. Now, looking back on it, I could have made it completely different and made it actually more beautiful and more functional and actually probably last longer. And, it's made out of pine. It's made out of, I think, 2x6s and 2x4s. But I used pocket holes, glue, and I stained it. And it's pine. Everything, that you look at, it wouldn't be. People aren't using pocket holes. That's the redheaded stepchild, if you want to say. Pocket holes. That's DIYer stuff. If you have pocket holes, hey, use it. Craig makes the Craig jig. If you have it in your shop and you're using it, use it. And then eventually you'll learn better skills on, maybe you can join it together with a different method instead of using the pocket holes, but they're still a valuable option to use out there. So if you're using pocket holes and you see somebody putting something together with, dovetails, who cares? If you're comfortable doing the pocket holes, use the pocket holes. That's how I started out.
Well, I think what matters is that you're doing it. Pocket holes is a good introduction to joining two pieces of wood. It's better than driving a screw right through it and calling it a day, right? And I did that in the beginning with certain things, personal projects and whatnot. I learned different because I took the time to research and follow some YouTube and go on Instagram.
Yeah,
and it depends on
YouTube is a big help.
It is. It truly is. And with that, it depends on the quality of materials you're working with. It depends on the time. Most of my projects, they want hey, I want it within a 2-week time period, which doesn't give you a lot of time to take, a massive slab and break it down and then join it on top of that. Eventually, would I like to get there? Yeah, I definitely would. But right now, at this time, I am, taking on jobs that my clients want pine. That's what they want. They want a cheaper wood. They don't care about how long it lasts, as long as it lasts a couple of years. And they want it fast and in a hurry. So there's a trade-off there.
There definitely is. Would we both like to use a gorgeous piece of, maple? Of course I would. But it's not, if I went to somebody and said, it's going to cost you X amount of dollars versus the pine, of course they're going to go with the pine. But not for nothing. Even the pine is probably going to last even more than a couple of years, if you do it right. Now, if you just put it together with some bubble gum, then it might not last as long because it's probably going to fall apart. Because that was actually my fear of putting that coffee table together. I'm thinking it's probably going to fall apart in a year, and it's still going strong at a year mark almost. So, I'm kind of happy about that. They haven't had any catastrophes yet.
Oh, when I met by a couple of years, these people I build a lot for, they move a lot. So, they're buying furniture from IKEA and whatnot. They just want something to last a couple moves. So, and be able to take it apart. That's a big thing that I've been trying to do is have furniture that they can take apart when they need to and they can move it. That's an addition to my projects.
But you're going to be the new IKEA. It's going to be Josh Kia.
I think I'm good. I'm actually, with these hammers, I'm moving away from some of the softer woods and going to be using the harder woods I have in stock. I already know they're dry enough. I know they're ready to be used. I'm hoping that because I didn't give them a price difference, or I really didn't even ask. They're like, I want this. I'm like, okay. And I gave them the price that included that hardwood. I wanted them to have an all moment. And I'll definitely continue using pine where, I need to, but I'm going to try to push a little bit more hardwood.
Yeah, I gotta start pricing some things out because I keep saying it. Yeah, we've done it in our lives. I keep looking at the spalted maple and just itching to get a flag made out of that. The spalted maple with some bloodwood. I still got to pick that up, but or I'm thinking spalted maple on the white stripes, maybe walnut for the red stripes, and then maybe an oak for the union. I'm not too sure yet because I don't want to use any stain. It's going to be all natural. You know how awesome that would be to put that together and then see all that figure. The spalted maple itself has so much character to it. So you build something that you enjoy building, but out of a gorgeous piece of wood. And I'm going to actually build it for this room that I'm sitting in right now.
We've talked about it before, like you said, and I cannot wait to see how that turns out. I think once you start making those, people are going to be asking for them left and right.
I just have to figure out the price point for them because I see there is a gentleman online that does them, I think in Paducah and Curly Maple, and they're expensive, really, really expensive.
And see, that's one of the reasons I went with pine for most of my projects, and the way I've been doing things is because I've been trying to keep the costs lower. And since I've taken this seriously, I've got a lot of great jobs and worked with a lot of great clients. But there's been a couple that have left a bad taste in my mouth. And I think with that, I'm going to adjust a little bit how I have been doing business. And no quick builds are going to be produced. They're going to be, slow, methodical, and when they leave my shop, they're going to know that North Country Woodworking did that.
And one other thing that not only do you have to think of how you're going to price it to the customer, you also got to think of overhead. I mean, if you got to now buy X amount of board feet of, let's just say, walnut, and you were going to use, let's just compare pine and walnut, you can go, okay, for the pine, I'm going to spend a couple hundred, not even a couple $100, $100. Now you got to do that same board feet, but in walnut, now your overhead's going to be more out of pocket. So, if you're a small shop and, this isn't your everyday thing, just like me, I mean, if I had to shell out a ton of money for good wood, it would hurt my pocket immediately instead of the pine, where at least then I know I have a little bit more leeway, and the money I'm going to be getting back from, the sale of the item actually is going to kind of cover me for everything that I need. I'm almost afraid that I won't make as much to cover myself with, a hardwood compared to the pine, like if I was to make these flags out of them.
Well, that's why you just have to price it, like you do anything else. My prices ain't going to change as far as like how I price things. And, we can go into that just a little bit. How I price things is the cost of material times 2 and 10%. And that is because of where I believe I'm at. Later on, it might be a little bit different and a little bit more pricey, but my skill level and my skill set and what I'm doing, it's not at the level where I believe I could charge more.
Yeah. All right. Now you're not doing, so no hourly rate for you.
No, I don't do hourly just because I don't quite know when I'm going to be able to get in the shop. And, I could try to, write down the times in and out of the shop and whatnot, but the amount of times I get pulled out at the last minute or I get to run in and, start a project, that alone, it would be difficult to compute at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to, on my next couple builds, I'm actually going to use your rule. I want to see, how on point I am to kind of where I'm at. I kind of, looked at everybody else's, seen what they were making, compared, and then went, okay, I could charge about this much. And I went even a little lower. I would love to. I would love to raise the prices on it. But as of right now, where I stand, I'm probably not making that much money because of the time and labor that goes into it. But, I don't charge hourly because, like you said, I don't have a time frame that I'm in the shop. It's kind of whenever I can get in there. I come home from work at 6 o'clock and now I'm in the shop for another 6 hours, until midnight, and it wears on me quick. But so, I mean, I definitely want to try your method to see how on point I am with that.
Well, in the beginning, it was hard for me to price out things. It really was. And then I didn't know how to, get the money. Like, should I get it after I deliver? And I was paying out of pocket for materials. It kind of morphed into its own thing. I figured out something I was comfortable with, something that I was making enough to justify the amount of time I'm spending on the project. That's what I'm going with, and that's how I'm going to be pricing things. Family and friends, they have a little bit different pricing, but they're family and friends, you know what I'm saying?
Now, you actually said something that kind of made me think. Do you get money up front on every build excluding friends and family? Are you asking for a deposit?
Yes, 100%. I will not start a project unless they give me half up front.
I think I'm afraid of losing a sale because I'm still new to this, and I figure because of the stuff that I'm building, it's not one-off customs unless, they ask for their family name or their family crest in the flag. So most of the stuff I can kind of resell if I needed to, if they flaked out and, left. But I kind of judge it on character. If the person is being really, how can I say this, flaky, when they first ask you. I've had people literally come to me and go, I want a flag, here's how, make it, and do you need a deposit? And sometimes I'll say, because they were so upfront and so know what they're talking about, that I kind of just went, okay, no, I'll take it at the end. Especially people that were local. I mean, I had people right down the street from me just order stuff. So I went, nah, hey, you're a local person, so I don't need any money from you. I kind of drive past your house every day. So if anything, I'll just throw the flag out to your front door. But, I kind of judge it on character for the most part. it's not a great way to do business. Of course, I should, and I am asking for a deposit more and more, but I'm still in that mindset of I'm going to lose the sale if I ask them for a deposit. And I've had more people tell me that they want to give me a deposit than I have that I've asked.
Well, man, your work speaks for itself. If they truly want a flag from you, they're going to give you that deposit. And yeah, I went through that same line of thinking in the beginning, and I realized quickly, if you ask for, say, okay, a project costs $200, okay? Mm-hmm. You ask for $100 out of that project. That helps ease the cost a little bit in a lot of people's minds, because they could pay $100 now, and they have time for the other $100 to come out of their account or whatever. Times are hard. I get it. But people are still wanting things built, and, that still costs money. I don't want to spend out of pocket for my business because I don't want to take too much away from the family accounts. And I was doing that because I was getting projects, and I was, I'm taking away. And I realized quickly, like, what happens if they just flaked out on me? Now I have an item I probably could sell, but am I going to get that same price that I quoted this person? Mm-hmm. My situation is a little different just because, I do these one odds. Pinterest, I guess, is a good example. They show me a picture and they're like, hey, can you build this? Well, yeah, I can build it. And in the beginning, I would actually look at the price I see online, try to undercut it a little bit or try to, similar. And I realized quickly that that's cheating myself, because if I'm not sticking to my golden rule of my pricing, then I'm not giving myself enough credit. If they're coming to me, they have to realize they're coming to someone that is making this by hand. I'm not a factory. This is, my hobby and time away from family. I need to get paid accordingly.
That's what a lot of people do. They go online and go, hey, I can get that item for $30. And then you come back and say, it's going to be $100. And I've had it where a woman asked me for, I can't remember, it was two simple items. I think I was going to charge her like $80-$90 or something like that for the two, and I kind of justified it because I went, okay, the time, the labor, plus, and I wasn't even doing hourly. It was just that, I factored in it's going to be a couple hours to maybe do if I sat down and did it all in one day. Then the material, and she came back and said, I can just go to Walmart and get it cheaper, and I proceeded to explain myself, which I should have just backed out and said, you're right, thank you for the opportunity, and left. But I had to ask, you realize that it's all handmade. That's where I'm, like you said, I'm not a factory. I'm not pumping these things out, one a day. I wish I was, because then I wouldn't be in the predicament that I'm in where I'm getting backlogged now. But, a lot of people don't realize how much time and energy goes into the stuff we're building. Real quick, I don't want to go on because I can make stories 4 hours long, but we had Kim's parents had a garage sale, and after I built them the coffee table, we brought it out into the driveway, to promote my little business and whatnot. And an old guy came over. He might have been 65 or something like that, and his wife stayed in the car. He's looking at the coffee table. Oh, my God, it's so nice. It's so nice. And asked me how much. His wife looks over and goes, how much did he say? And I think I said like 300 or 350. And she goes, that's too much. He turns around and looks at me and she goes, she just doesn't understand the time and energy that goes into it. He goes, you're doing really good work, so keep it up. So, he goes, I would love to buy it, but she's the boss in this one, so I can't just go over.
I would have shook that gentleman's hand and like, thank you, sir. I do appreciate it. Because
trust me.
You're 100% right, man. Like, someone that has never tried to put something together from scratch, I say pretty much anything, it takes time. If you're not using plans, even if you are using plans, but say you're not, and you're building this, you totally have a picture in your head, and you're building it. Things change during that build.
Oh, yeah.
Like, things might lay out in ways that you didn't expect or prepared for, and you now have to change things on the fly. Or time traveling. I mean, it's not like I have a huge department store right out my door where I could walk 2 feet, go in, get what I need, and walk out. This is our hobby. We run, small little projects out of our shops. But pricing does matter, and it's a big part of deciding what you really want to do in woodworking, because once you start making as a woodworker, taking that piece of wood and making something out of nothing, and you want to sell it, guess what? You're going to be thinking about all these things we just mentioned.
It comes up every time I, try pricing something out because, I could go all different ways with my stuff. And, somebody said, hey, I want a 3-foot flag, but I want it engraved. But I want 2 things engraved. Now I got to factor in the time of engraving and whatnot. Or, we got to hand paint something on. And so I have to actually tack stuff onto that. So price point goes up, depending on. But, with that being said, the one lucky thing is that I have a nice CNC machine that I can start a project on and I could walk away from it. So I'm lucky enough to have that item or that machine going, helping me. Meanwhile, I'm still working on another project. So I actually did it last weekend. I had it carving out a flag. I went outside and did one of the wavy flags. So I was carving out a flag while it was carving out an image. And once I got done with my flag, it was done. So it was like, I felt so accomplished because I got 2 things done that normally would take me twice as long to do. So it's nice to have a CNC, and you have, your laser engraver, which I saw going full bore the other day on those cutting boards at 4 at a time.
Yeah, it definitely was a helping hand for that. It was a great little project to have. Obviously, this engraver came in huge during that time. I said it in my stories, I'll say it on here. I probably could have done more at one time. But longevity of the laser is what we need, right? Because you pay for these things and you want to make sure they last. And 4 was a perfect amount of time for doing multiple, letting it pause while I changed the mount, and then continuing. And plus, if I decided to start something a little bit later in the day, I'm not waiting double that amount of time for it to finish so I can close up shop. So it made sense to me. Question about your CNC machine. What type did you get? Why'd you go with that? And how do you price additional carvings with your flags, if you want to share that?
So I went with the Millwright Mega V. It was actually, my father had ordered it for me in the beginning. And because, he knew it would help me out. And then, eventually I'm paying him back as we go because he found it. He just kind of ordered it himself. And he came to me and said, look, don't buy any more tools. Meanwhile, I still bought tools. He says, I got something coming that's going to really help you out. And the CNC has, how can I say it, has changed a lot because of the customization that I can do now. I can come up with an idea and literally lay it out. The longest time that for me that takes is building the file, because I have to either build it from scratch or I have to find it, put it into the program. So the way I build it out is I kind of just tack on a little bit extra. Most of the carvings aren't long. I think my longest carving on a flag was like 4 hours. I kept on eyeing. I kept on looking at it at like every 5 minutes just to make sure it wasn't on fire, because that would be my luck. But that one, that one was a hard one to price because it was a tribute flag for a family. So the meaning behind it was enough payment, for me to actually make it. So, but if a normal flag, let's just say like the thin blue line flag that I just did, I charged, I think, an extra $20 or something like that for that. Because it's just still, you had to pay for the machine. I wish the machine was free and then we didn't have to charge for it. But you still have to make that back somehow. So the larger the carve, the longer it takes, the more wear and tear on my equipment. Now I have to kind of factor that in and go, okay, if something burns out, I now have to be able to pay for that. So it all depends on how I price it out and how large the carve is. I'm actually doing, this weekend, I'll be doing a carve for another maker, actually, who lives in West Milford. He builds flags. That's all he does. I don't quote me on that. I apologize. But he's Bear Country Flags on Instagram. And he lives not far from me. He actually reached out and said, hey, can you carve this out since you have a CNC? So it's nice to know that, even other makers want to have stuff carved out with the CNC, and that's going to make that machine even more money. I probably went on such a long tangent on that, and it could have been like 5 minutes. Like, hey, I got a CNC, and this is how I do it.
No, man, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. I mean, like, I'm not going to mention what kind of laser I have because I went on Amazon and I bought one that fit my needs, and it's some company. I don't even say company. It's probably some guy that threw it together and gave it to me. It's a great laser. You can't find it on Amazon anymore. I've actually looked for other people. And that's another thing. If you have questions about lasers, I don't know everything, but I could definitely give you some pointers and stuff that I wish I knew in the beginning. But for pricing purposes, right? So I still have issues. That's something I'm learning to price, because for me to throw something on there and have a machine do it, how much input am I having on that? And like you, the majority of my time isn't the laser doing its job. It's me doing mine and creating the image and make sure it's going to print well. I do multiple test pieces before I actually do it on the real piece. I'm now just getting good enough where I could do maybe 1 or 2 test pieces and be like, hey, that's going to be great. Good to go. But again, it depends on the type of wood I'm using. It depends on where the grain is. I have to adjust where the laser is going to be actually cutting, and, the power. There's a lot that goes into it, and a lot I had to learn the hard way. The biggest thing, the biggest helper I've had is changing up programs. And I bought an additional program for I think it was $40 extra, and it was a game changer for me. I actually just talked to another woodworker on Instagram, and they purchased, pretty much almost the same kind of setup I had, just a smaller bed. And they were using the program that I used in the beginning, and I told them straight up, here, I'm going to save you time. It's extra $40, and if you can, grab it, learn that program, forget about the one you're using.
The program is a big thing, because I read a lot of guys, using the same exact CNC, using a different program and wondering why it's not working right or, compatible with it. But you read a lot of people who are using, Aspire or VCarve Pro, which is by company Vectric. And Vectric is, that's the name. If you mention Vectric in the CNC world, everybody knows what it is. And once you get into that level, it's just like buying a new tool. If you go to Harbor Freight and you buy a tool, it will work. It will do what you need it to, but will it last and will it grow with you? Probably not. And then you upgrade to something better, and then you realize, wow, now I know why, it costs more. Now I know why a lot of people have it. So it's the same thing even with the softwares. If you go with because I was trying free versions of stuff, and it just was not working out the way I wanted it to. And I even noticed it in the carves. They weren't coming out clean. I didn't know how to set it up. It was kind of, the cheap versions or the free versions are start and stop, and that's it. You don't have the functionalities that you do with a higher end, kind of software. And I could imagine that'd probably be the same with that the laser.
Yeah, so let's face it. I don't have a CNC machine, but I do. That laser is a CNC machine. It just doesn't carve. It engraves. It burns. And with that, I had to learn basics of pretty much the same kind of setups you have, which, M5 button will work, what's off, what's on. It's always a series of inputs, basically, you're doing to the computer. And it's telling it what to do.
One thing that I have to say besides anything is it's amazing watching these things work. I looked at it I just carved out a marine insignia. I watched this thing do the feathers in an eagle, and I'm going, how does a picture translate to a machine now doing this? The coding that goes into it. And I'm just going I'm shaking my head looking at it and laughing it's a machine, and it's doing exactly what I wanted it to do in a precision manner. I mean, it's a godsend that I have it, and I'm lucky enough to have it. But man, it's a game changer to have it.
It truly is. I mean, I've gotten jobs, last minute jobs that I would have never had if I didn't have some way to engrave the way I can. It's definitely an addition to the shop. It's not the only thing I do, and by far is going to end up being the only thing I do. It's an additional tool that kind of ties into what is woodworking. For me, I am still trying to process this wood. I am still creating it in some form. And then when I put it in there and let the laser engraver go at it, I created whatever picture it's engraving. I created that piece. It's just helping me. It's an additional tool in my workshop that works for me.
It's funny when you hear people say, CNC is not woodworking, and yes, 100% I will agree with that. If you take a chunk of wood that you did nothing to, all you did was your hands touched it to move it from one place to another, you sat it on the CNC or laser engraver and hit a button. Once that program was done, you then took your hands and moved it from there to someone else. You did nothing to move that wood. All you did was you moved it just from one place to another, and that was it. If you have to take a piece of wood, build something out of it, then use this tool of ours, and then, use it to advantage, and then you still have to, maybe stain it, paint it, shape it. I did the Marine logo, and then I still took that flag and I still carved it out. I sanded it. Now I got to stain it. So I still have to work it. So to me, a CNC or a laser or an automated tool of sort is still considered, I would still consider us woodworkers, because we're still doing other stuff to that wood. We're just not hitting a button, coming back when it's done and saying, yep, I'm a woodworker now.
I agree, man. And you know what? I will even call myself out. That last project where I did 85 cutting boards, I was that guy. I took it out of the package because they supplied the cutting boards. I put it down. I pushed play. When it was finished, I took it. I put it back in the box because I offered, to oil them and to, try to spruce these things up a little bit. And they did not want that. So I put them back in the box and I got another one and I threw it down. And doing it, I wasn't too proud of it because I would have loved to make the cutting boards for them. But for the price point, they got them for cheap. They're supposed to be like giveaways, I think.
Okay.
So it was what it was. But I would not call that a woodworking project. I call that a project.
Yeah. Well, while you were doing that project, you were doing something of woodworking.
Oh, 100%.
While that was going.
Yeah, I mean, that was taking up space in the shop. It could definitely be carving while I'm out in, creating something else. In fact, I was working on the challenge coin holder I did, and the oven topper, which I'm finishing up here soon. So
that challenge coin, I'm excited to build my first one. And I got a router bit. I got a 3/16 router bit. So, yeah.
I'm screaming in excitement over here because you're going to have to tell me where you got that.
Amazon.
You gotta love it. Amazon.
Everything comes from Amazon. You told me what size that coin rack's got to be, and I literally typed it into Amazon and literally had it within 2 days, I think. But I figured I want to try it out so then I can even tell you it works, it's perfect, no problem. Because I figured I could set it up on a router table and then just run the pieces through, make it kind of easy for myself.
I'm definitely going to be buying that probably tonight. And that size that I gave you is what works, what I found works for me. It, like I said, fits most coins. In fact, they sent me some pictures of their coins on there, and there were a couple that, did not fit in that slot because, well, they were just a little too bulky. But the majority, I would say 95%, was just fine.
Well, that's good to know. At least I could give you some feedback on how well that router bit works, because it's the exact size that you said. So I'm really itching to get this flag done so that I can get it built.
Why don't you tell us a little bit more about this project, if you can?
Well, it's a 3-foot flag. It's going to be a thin blue line. The woman wanted a challenge coin rack for her husband because she actually has her brother's coins. I don't know if he's not with us anymore. I didn't really get into it, but she just said I have about 30 coins and I need a new rack, because she showed me the rack that she has, and man, her husband has, and it's filled with coins. So this one's gonna be a 3-foot, and I'm hoping that I learn a lot from this. And I can't imagine what I had said that put you in tears on this one. Is it the sentimental value of this?
It is. It truly is.
I thought so.
Yeah, I can't wait for that build. Are you gonna do it horizontal or like vertical?
No, it's going to be just like my normal 3 foot flag. So it's going to be 3 foot wide, almost 20 inches tall, and it's going to have small shelves on the right side of the union. And then once it's under the union, then they're going to be full 3 foot.
Okay, so you're keeping the union basically intact without shelves.
Yep.
Okay.
I was like, should I go over the union? And I'm like, no, it just won't look right. And I was trying to, when we talked, I was thinking the size you had said, and then I found one online just for reference, and the gentleman made it almost the exact same size and said it'll hold, I think, 100 coins. So I went, okay, so even if it holds 50, at least then they could have the 30 that she has, and then plus some from the other holder.
Yeah, I mean, in the beginning I really wanted to stay away from challenge coin holders or displays, but they're pretty fun builds. Even after I got done with that flag build not too long ago, I still have the old one. I turned it into basically regular challenge coin holder that you lay down that could hold like 50 coins or so. I actually printed the Johnny Cash song, the old flag or ye old flag or something like that, on the back.
Oh, yeah.
I'm blanking on the name exactly, but
Was it Old Glory?
no, I bet you we probably Google that later. But
Yeah.
long story short, it fit the bill. I put some oil on it, and it turned out really good. It looks like, a battered old flag. It kind of is in its own right.
Yeah. No, it came out really, really nice. Even if you wanted to burn, because that was the infamous flag, even though you wanted to burn the hell out of it, you still made it came out amazing looking. You still work through it, and I like how it came out. And I do like that little touch of the engraving on the back as well, because when I first saw it, I think you posted it up on your story. I'm looking at it going like, what is it? And then you flipped it over, and it's the challenge coin rack. That actually came out really, really nice. I like it. One question is that I meant to ask you earlier. You don't angle those coin slots, do you? They're just straight.
Yeah. That particular build, the old flag, actually it's Johnny Cash, ragged old flag. Correction there.
Okay.
Just looked it up. That one is angled. It's not. I think it's like a 3-degree angle. But when I revamped it into the other one, I didn't angle it because I did a test piece, and I realized that the angle gives it just a little bit, so it kind of sits back a little bit. But the straight up and down there's enough space that most coins will angle back just enough anyway. So you don't have to quite rely on doing it at a certain degree point.
Yeah, I'm just going to go with straight and be done with it. But now, speaking of that flag, you learned a lot on that thing. You had come to me with a couple questions, and we kind of figured it out on, with each other. The one thing that we both kind of thought of was, and this is more like a tips and trick kind of thing, was the clamp pressure that you were using. I know for a fact that I learned on how to do the proper amount of clamp pressure because I always thought you cranked them down until that, the black pipe just started bending in the middle and you're good. But then talking to a lot of guys, I learned that the more pressure you do, the more problems you're going to have. So I don't know if touch on that little, maybe, I can't even say mishap because it was, the way you've done it. Clamp pressure is definitely a big thing that a lot of people don't know. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, so I clamped down way too hard on that project because I wanted it to work so bad. Basically clamped that flag down as hard as I could, trying to make sure nothing moved. A lot of moving parts in there, something I never did. And I stained it prior. I stained even the sides. So, maybe because I stained it on the sides, it could have been an issue. It just didn't take well. I had a bow in it. The union fell off, and that one side didn't even have glue on it. And I know I put glue on it. There was no residue whatsoever. So it either squeezed all the glue out or it just magically, disappeared. And I don't necessarily do that with all my projects either. Like, I do put a lot of pressure on there, but I never thought about being an issue for too much pressure. until I saw that one
Yeah.
that one side and realized that, well, maybe there is such a thing. So it was definitely a lesson learned. It went through its paces. It took me through some paces, and I really hope that it finds a home to someone to appreciate that. In its own right, it's definitely its own project.
I can tell you every time I just did like 7 glue ups on different flags, and every time I had a clamp and I'm clamping down, I was thinking of you clamping down and just like taking a pipe wrench and just cranking on that, until the whole thing's just twisting and whatnot.
To be fair, no other tools were needed. I clamped down, with what I could do. But I will say those pipe clamps, man, they can hold some pressure.
Yeah, well, I mean, what are they, 3/4 or the 1/2 inch?
I took 1/2 inch.
Okay, so you might see the 1/2 inch bend a little bit. I mean, if you were using 3/4, you'd never see that bend.
Not at all. Yeah, man, it was a lesson learned. And that's, the ending of our segments. We're going to talk a lot about these little tips or mistakes that we do. So hopefully one of you guys can sit there and be like, oh, I'm about to do that. Well, now I know what not to do.
Speaking of, we could stay on the clamping while, gluing up, because clamp pressure is a big thing. And then also I learned a huge one from the early beginning, because I used to want to make something flat and then I'd glue it up and take it out of the clamps, and literally in 5 minutes it would turn into a half pipe, and it would, or a wave, or it would be tweaked one way or another. I never knew what calls were. I thought those were what you did on a phone. I thought you called somebody. And then I learned calls are, strips of wood or metal or something that you clamp down onto the top and bottom of the wood, and then you spread that clamping pressure, just not, clamping edge to edge. You actually clamp it all down and flatten everything out. And that kind of holds everything from going out of whack when you're applying your final clamp pressure. So you got clamps that are running horizontal to the board, and then you would put the coil on top, and then the bottom you'd use other clamps on the edges and kind of squeeze them together. I don't know if you ever saw Woodpeckers came out with those Clampzillas.
I want them.
I had them for 15 minutes and put them back in the box and returned
No
them.
kidding.
I hated them.
Really?
One of the biggest things that I noticed was you actually had to open it up like a clamshell, instead of being able to lay the bottom one down and then take your top one and lay it down. You actually had to open it up, and so now this big long piece of metal is sticking up or laying down on the other side. So it took up a lot of space. But if you go back into their website and look at the Junior, they actually integrated something that I was thinking of: quick release pins. The other ones had like these E-clips on these pins. I'll have to show you when after this, but they were a pain, I have to say. The Juniors I would buy, but they're still not big enough for me.
Yeah, I actually saw those. I was concerned about getting them. They were just a little too pricey, and I'm not doing a lot of panel clamping at the moment. No, I've done more, in recent months, but when those came out, it just wasn't something that I needed at that time. I don't think they offer those. I think it was one of those one-time tools.
They brought them back because of such high demand.
No kidding. I must have missed that.
I'm telling you, for the price of them, I really liked the concept of them. I really, really did. But you know what? I went to Harbor Freight. I got more of those little F-style clamps, I think the 6-inch ones, and then I got more pieces of wood with some tuck tape on it, and I use those as my calls. And I probably spent as much, probably like $20.
Nice.
Because the wood I had and those clamps, from Harbor Freight aren't too much. Instead of spending all that money on that Clampzilla.
Okay, where you get your clamps, it really depends on how much you want to spend. In the beginning, I thought there was only a few clamps out there that are worth their weight. I didn't know about Harbor Freight until maybe 2 months ago, and I saw someone post about them, and I went in there, and I'm like, I've seen them in there. I'm like, oh, these things are going to fall apart as soon as I try to clamp something. Dude, I've been waiting because of COVID, but I've been waiting to go back in there and just empty their stock of clamps.
That hurts that you never saw my post about the Harbor Freight clamps, that you put a piece of plywood in the spine of it, and then you wax it, you put like you give it some love, and then they work so much better.
I honestly missed that one, and it's my bad, man. But I did not.
I'm gonna cry tonight.
It's okay, you know. I'm crying. I'm actually crying. Sorry.
I don't know if I can do this anymore.
That's it. We made it to episode 2. Or is it?
So
it's
yeah,
like 2.5.
If you, 2.5. We've done too many of these, that we haven't gotten recorded. But if you do get, are you talking about the aluminum bar clamps, correct?
I'm talking about those F clamps that they have. I got a couple of 6 inches from them. I got some the bar clamps as well. I haven't done the plywood trick in there yet. It's a plan on where I've been, just kind of putting it off.
Oh, one thing about the F style clamps, you went recently, more recent than like you didn't go 6 months ago. You went 2 months ago and bought some.
I'm fuzzy on the timeline, but yeah, it wasn't too long ago that I went in there. It was pre-masked, so whenever that was.
Were the bar where the clamp slides, is that a shiny black or is that a matte black? And the reason I'm asking, I'll tell you as soon as I find out. Like, because there's 2 versions.
Oh, really? Trying to think. I think it's a shiny black, if I remember right.
I have the little 6-inch F clamps, and I got them a while back, and they were like this matte black on the bar itself. And I went, okay. I went into a few months ago, and they're now the shiny black. So I'm like, oh, they upgraded them, so then maybe the glue won't stick. I actually like the old ones better because they slid. I'm having issues with them sliding. The little lock release, when you pull it up, it kind of jams itself. But all the old style, I haven't had that issue with. So I was kind of excited that they changed it a little bit, and now I'm kind of disappointed that they changed it.
Yeah, I haven't had any issues with them. And granted, I don't use the 6-inch very often when I'm doing my clamping. I like the clip grip ones. I use those a lot. The pistol grip, that's what they're called. I'm definitely going to go back there, and I'm going to empty them out. It makes more sense. I can't spend hundreds of dollars on clamps and only get 4 out of them.
I actually, when I first started this, I was on such a hunt for everything big and name brand. So I actually found a really good deal on Pony Jorgensen's Cabinet Master 48-inch. I found 10 or 12 of them the woman was selling for $100. They're massive.
You have 10 of those?
Yeah.
I might know someone that might want to get some from you. if you can't use them all, I'm saying, if you could spare 2.
Those things, I haven't shown you all the clamps that I have.
No, I think you did a story on you updating
I might
your
have.
clamp rack, but it's been a while. Man, what's happened? COVID, I slept.
Yeah.
It's
I have too many clamps that I'm realizing, but the other night they came in handy because I used almost all of them.
Sir.
Except the Cabinet Masters.
Excuse me, sir. There's never too many clamps. You can never have too many. And my wife listens to this podcast, and I just want to make sure she understands. You can never have too many clamps.
No, you can't. I'm actually itching to go back to Harbor Freight and get more clamps because now I'm finding a need for them.
Well, let's just make sure we don't go to the same one because I have to race you there.
Yeah, no. The last time I went there, I took all their 6-inch F clamps. I just kept on dumping them into the cart and dumping them, and I left none. Clamps, yeah, I learned the hard way too that you don't need Bessie's.
You don't need any of the name brands. There are other ones out there that you can get that will do the job. If you want one all same color, that's really up to you. I feel the same way about my power tools. I have a Grizzly, I have a Recon, I have DeWalt, I have a variety of Bosch, and I get what I can afford at the time and what I need. I've updated my tools. And we talked about that the last episode. You don't need all these expensive tools to make it work. And that kind of goes back to the beginning. What is woodworking, right? So woodworking is essentially, taking something and making something. It doesn't matter what tools you have.
How can I put this? Because all I know is that Merca sander is a game changer.
Yeah, it's a game changer, right? It's something that ups your game. But could you sand without it? Yeah.
Oh,
So
yeah. Big time.
basically, what it comes down to, and this is pretty as straightforward as you can make it, more expensive tools by big names will help you probably do it faster, and it's going to be easier on you. But that does not mean that you can't do that same quality and produce that. It might take you more time, more effort, but you can still do it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Trust me, it took me a while to get real, name brand tools because I didn't want to. I didn't want to spend that money on them because, it hurt my wallet at first. But, and then we grow in our skill set and, well, we discussed it last time. I talked about the Hercules miter saw, how that was hindering me more than helping me. So at that point, I had to change something. Yeah, there's a ton of tools that are out there that cost $40, and it'll work great. And you can also do secondhand because I've gotten a lot of my stuff is secondhand. My drum sander's secondhand, the joiner, and the joiner was in somebody's barn that they used once and put away. And I cleaned it up, and it works like brand new.
My drill press and my joiner came from the same person, and they were moving. I walked into this guy's shop. Already agreed, already paid him, and we're moving it into my vehicle. And I'm looking at it, and it has this like film over the metal. And I'm looking at it, and I'm like, sir, hey, what is this? And he's like, yeah, it's a protective film to keep it from rusting. And I start looking at this tool, and he has a maintenance log. When the blades were changed, last time he went through and cleaned it all. And same thing with the drill press he sold me. And I'm like, I scored on this one. I knew right there and then that these tools were going to be in a great working condition and they're going to last me for a long time. So there are deals out there, and you should be looking at that too. You don't have to buy everything brand new.
Hey, at least you had a film of protective something to keep the rust off of it. I had rust and purple paint on my jointer.
Oh wow!
That they spilled.
When I got Frankenstein, he hadn't been used. And if you don't know, Frankenstein was my old bandsaw. He had a bunch of rust on him, and I spent probably 2 days restoring him to the proper working order.
Well, used tools are fun because, you get to do that. I saw some people, restoring joiners, and once I found this one online, I got it at a great deal, and I went, and it's a project, and I'll feel accomplished once I take it apart, clean it, and put it back together, and now it's in working condition, and it's in great working condition. You score on two fronts. Now I get to learn about the joiner and how it comes apart, how it adjusts. And then on top of that, I now have the satisfaction of cleaning it up. So you can definitely buy secondhand.
For sure, man. And what it comes down to is now you know that machine in and out. Like sometimes some of these tools, they come basically ready to go. You have to learn how to use them and the options they have. Now you can, when it's not acting right, you can be like, oh, you know what? It's probably this.
Yeah, and at least you know how to dive into it. So, well, it was, we were talking about what is woodworking and went over a lot of stuff today. So I hope you guys enjoyed, our discussion of what's woodworking to us. And if you have any, questions, you can reach out to myself. I almost said myself, North Country. So myself, AJ over at Crafted and NJ, and Josh at North Country Woodworking on Instagram, or you can reach us at sawdustnationpodcast@gmail.com. Or you can even follow us on Instagram on the podcast, Sawdust Nation Podcast on Instagram. Well, it's been real, man. These get easier each time.
Yeah, I can't wait for the next one. Well, everybody, thanks for stopping by and listening to Sawdust Nation. We'll see you next time.
See you.